Chapter 36. The all-pervasiveness of Sai and the fulfillment of his blessings. I bow down to Sri Ganesh. I bow down to Sri Saraswati. I bow down to the Guru. I bow down to the family deity. I bow down to Sri Sita Ramchandra. I bow down to Sri Sadguru Sai Nath. Now refer to the last chapter wherein an assurance was given to relate the interesting story of the theft. Be fully attentive to it. This is not a story but a drink of eternal bliss, which increases the thirst for more. To pacify that thirst, another story will follow. The listeners will be pleased on hearing that it destroys the distress of this mundane existence and grants a state of happiness. One who is fortunate enough to desire his own well-being, he should be ready to listen with reverence to the narration of Sai's stories. The greatness of the saints is beyond limits. None is able to describe it fully. I am truly aware that I have no qualifications. Enough of the ego of the narrator. Sai, the sagacious, can find anyone to describe his attributes so that his devotees can hear them. He indeed is the swan in the lake in the form of the highest. He is the swan, looking at the world in him, or within him and finding himself in that world, remaining truly indifferent, but rejoicing in the food of pearls in the form of Brahman and enjoying the spirit of great adventure. One who has no name or place of his own, but has incomparable glory. He can make a pauper into a wealthy man, instantly, by merely raising an eyebrow. He, who is absolute knowledge incarnate, shows the true form of God, remaining uninvolved except as a witness, by creating innumerable circumstances. He gives darshan in different forms to those on whom he showers his grace by creating inconceivable occurrences. Listen to the glory of that great soul. Those who meditate upon him with unswerving concentration or sing loving bhajans, praising and worshipping him, they will never lack anything because he takes care of them completely. He enjoys his stories being told and, therefore, reminds me constantly by being instrumental in creating a speaker and listeners, to fulfill the wishes of the devotees. He who has enjoined himself to Vishnu, Chakrapani, and is fully engrossed in the spiritual attainment by leaving aside the worldly ties, has uplifted many beings. He who is worshipped within the country and abroad and he for whom the flag of devotion flies high, he invites the meek and the poor and fulfills the desires of all. Be that whatsoever. Now listen with reverence to this story of Sai which is supremely holy. The ears of the listeners and the tongue of the speaker will be purified. Two gentlemen from Goa came for Sai's darshan. Both of them humbled themselves at Sai's feet and were pleased with the darshan. Though both came together, Sai asked for dakshina from one only. "Give me 15 rupees," he said, which that gentleman gave happily. He asked nothing from the second person, but on his own he gave 35 rupees. Sai immediately refused to take them. He was greatly surprised. Madhavarao was there at that time. Seeing this discrimination, he asked Sai about it. "Listen to it, Baba. Why do you do this? Both friends have come together. You asked dakshina from one and returned what was voluntarily offered by the other. Why should there be any discrimination by a saint? On your own, you asked from one and returned what was given by the other, by his own wish. You disappointed the latter. You seem pleased with the smaller offering and refused the larger sum. If I had been in your place, I would not have behaved like this. Shamya, You do not know anything. I do not take anything from anybody. It is the Masjid Mai, presiding deity of the masjid, who asks for what is owing to her. The giver is then free from debts. Do I have a home? Or do I have a family, that I should need money? I am free in all respects. But debt, enmity and murder have to be atoned for, as there is no escape. People take vows to some deity at the time of need. But it is a problem for me, who is trying to uplift them. You do not worry about that. You implore me only at that particular moment. I am always pleased with those devotees of mine who have no debt. Initially, he was poor. He took a vow to give his first pay to God, which was 15 rupees. But later he forgot. Thereafter, from rupees 15 it increased to rupees 30. Then from rupees 30 it rose to rupees 60, to rupees 100. Though the salary doubled or even increased four-fold, he totally forgot about the vow. In this way, his salary increased to rupees 700. By his good fortune he came here. Then I asked for my rupees 15, being that amount, in the guise of dakshina. Now listen to another story. Once when I was wandering on the seashore, I came across a huge mansion and I sat down on its veranda. The owner of the mansion was a Brahmin, cultured and very rich. He welcomed me with affection and fed me sumptuously. There, in a nice, clean, selected place, with a sliding shutter, he gave me a place to sleep and I fell asleep. Seeing that I was sound asleep, someone removed the stone and broke the wall and cut my pocket without my knowledge. He stripped me of all that I had. When I woke up and realized what had happened, I was in tears, as I had been robbed of Rs. 30,000. I was devastated. The money was in bank notes. When I had this sudden loss, I was shocked. The Brahmin tried to console me. I was too grief-stricken to even eat or drink. For 15 days, I sat at the same place on the veranda. After the 15th day, a wandering fakir, singing couplets in the Urdu language on a metaphysical theme, appeared suddenly and saw me crying. Upon his asking me the reason for my grief, I told him the whole tale. He told me that my difficulty would be solved provided I acted as he told me. He said that he would give me the name of a fakir and his whereabouts. If I surrendered to him, he would get back my money. But he asked me to observe a vow until I recovered what I desired by abstaining from my favorite food, whereupon my goal would be attained. I acted upon the fakir's advice, got my money back. Then I left the Wada and went back to the seashore. While thus walking, I saw a steamer but I could not get in as it was crowded. Then a good-natured peon interceded for me and got me a place in the steamer. By good fortune, the steamer reached the other shore. When I caught the train and came back home, I saw the Masjid Mai. Here Baba's story ended. Later Shama was instructed to take the guests home and to feed them there, may it be whatsoever. Later, food was served on the leaf plates. Madhavarao was curious and asked the guests if they understood the story. In reality, Sai Baba has lived here continuously. There is no sea, nor steamer, nor captain. He is fully aware of this. Which was the Brahmin? And which was the huge mansion? He has spent his whole life under a tree. From where could he get such a large sum of money that could later be stolen by a thief? He began relating this story only after your arrival, and in this way he told you something connected with your past then. The guests replied in voices choking with tears, Sai is omniscient. He is the Parbrahm avatar, without any duality. He is infinite and all-pervading. Whatever he has said now is word to word our own story. As soon as this delicious repast is over, we will tell you everything in detail. Whatever Baba said has actually taken place in every detail. How did he come to know without even knowing us? Therefore, it is beyond our comprehension, so be it. After the meal, when they were chewing betel nut leaves, with Madhavarao present, they started telling the stories. One of the two gentlemen said, the Ghats are my native place, but I was destined to earn my livelihood from a place near the sea. Therefore, I went to Goa and thought of getting a job there. For that purpose, I began worshipping and propitiating Lord Datta and took a vow to him with great reverence. I said, O Lord, I need a job for the maintenance of the family. Therefore, be merciful and give me one. I prostrate at your feet. Within a short time, if you keep your word, I will offer to you my entire earnings of the first month by good fortune. Lord Datta was propitious and, in a short time, the object of my vow was fulfilled. I began to get rupees 15 per month, as salary in the beginning. Later, as Sai Baba described, my promotions came, but I totally forgot about the vow and Baba reminded me in this manner. It may be considered that Dakshina was taken. But it was not Dakshina but a repayment of a debt. He reminded me, by this pretext, of a very old vow. Actually, Sai did not ask for money nor allowed his devotees to ask for the same. He considered wealth to be the cause of all evil and did not let his devotees have any greed for it. A devotee like Mahalsapati, who was always attached at Sai's feet, and could hardly make both ends meet, even he was not allowed to make any money. Sai himself distributed to people, many times, the monies that had come as Dakshina, but he did not give a farthing to him who was always in difficulties. Mahalsapati too was a man of self-respect. Though Sai was so generous, he never extended his hand to ask him for it. Though his financial situation was dire, but he was very, very detached. He bore the difficulties of poverty always content with the little he had. Once a very kind businessman, who was called Hansraj, felt like giving something to Mahalsapati. Knowing his poverty-stricken condition, he naturally got the good idea of helping him to the extent that he could, to give him some relief. Though such was his condition, if anyone tried to give him something, Sainatha did not approve, as he preferred indifference to money. So, observe what that businessman did. Being melted with pity towards that devotee, when both were present in the Sai Darbar, he pushed some money in his hands. With all humility, Mahalsapati returned it and said, without Sai's permission, I cannot accept it. He was not a worshipper of money. He only yearned for spirituality. He had surrendered to Sai with body and mind, unselfishly and with a loving heart. Hansraj entreated Sai, but Sai did not touch a farthing and said, even my devotees are not lured by money, and you will not find them fall prey to the pomp and show of money now. The second visitor said, now I also have realized the whole matter. Listen, I will tell the whole story. You will enjoy listening to it. My cook, who had served me for 35 years, who was completely honest and faithful, on account of his misfortune was misled and he stole all my savings. A cupboard had been fixed in the wall of my house. After stealthily pushing aside a stone, he made a hole in it, without anyone's knowledge. The cupboard to which Baba referred earlier, he made a hole in that, for which he removed the stones from the wall, when everyone was asleep. And as Baba said furthermore, he took all my money, which was in bank notes. All that is the truth. It was exactly 30,000. I do not know how Baba mentioned that amount. It was all my hard-earned money. I was crying day and night. My inquiries came to nothing. I did not know what to do. For a fortnight I was in a whirlpool of anxiety. I was at my wit's end. One day, as I was sitting on the veranda, very depressed and morose, a fakir was passing by singing metaphysical couplets. Seeing me sad and dejected, the fakir asked me the cause of my depression. Then I narrated to him the story in detail and he told me how to overcome the problem. In Kopergaon Taluka, in a village called Shirdi, there lives an Aulia called Sai. Take a vow to him. Forswear eating something you relish and tell him mentally and truly, I have given up eating this food till I have your darshan. When the fakir said this to me, I immediately forsook eating rice and said, Baba, till my property is recovered and I have your darshan, I will not partake of it. Barely had a fortnight passed and I do not know what came in the cook's mind, but of his own accord he came and returned all my money. He said, I lost my mind and thereby acted in this manner. I now put my head at your feet. Please say I forgive you, may that be whatsoever. Later on everything went well. I had an intense desire to have Sai's darshan, which has been fulfilled today. Blessed is this good fortune. The one who came to console me when I was seated on the veranda, sad, depressed and in great misfortune, was not seen again. I never met again the one who had such loving concern for me and who told me about Sai and directed me to Shirdi. The one whom I met by chance, singing metaphysical couplets, and who made me take the vow, him I never met again. I feel that fakir was truly this Sai Aulia of yours. To give me the benefit of taking his darshan, he himself became anxious. Whatever may be the enticement held out by anyone, I had no desire to have this darshan. The fakir created this desire in me, at the outset, so that I could recover my money. It would never be possible for him to covet rupees 35 from me, who gave me back my whole wealth only by making a vow to him and without any other effort. On the contrary, we are ignorant people. To bring us on the path of spirituality, and to ensure our well-being, he makes efforts and brings us to the path under these pretexts. This is the purpose of this avatar. Otherwise, how would we, who are devoid of devotion and insignificant, cross the ocean of worldly existence? Think of that calmly. So be it. After recovering the stolen property, I was overjoyed, and, as a result, I forgot all about my vow. The greed for money is dangerous. Then observe that one day when I was near Kulaba, I saw Sai in my dream and immediately left for Shirdi. Sai Samartha has described my travels. I was refused a place on the steamer, but a peon interceded for me and helped me to overcome my problem. When I came to the steamer, these were my difficulties. And truly a peon, who was a stranger, interceded on my behalf. Only then did the captain, who was initially rude, give me a place on the steamer and obliged me. Though the peon was a total stranger, he said that I was known to him. Therefore, I was allowed in and got a good seat. Just as the story about the steamer, so was the story about the peon, which actually occurred in my case. Sai said it as if it had happened to him. Having this marvelous experience, my intellect is baffled. I feel that this Sai is omnipresent. There is not an atom which is not pervaded by him. He will grant similar experiences to others as he has given to me. Who am I? And where do I come from? How fortunate I am that he has dragged me with all these efforts and placed me on the spiritual path. What made me take the vow? What caused my savings to be stolen? What a marvel it is about the fulfillment of the vow and the return of the savings without efforts. How inconceivably fortunate am I! He whose darshan I had not taken earlier, nor had I thought of, nor heard of, he was taking care of me. Then how much more fortunate are those devotees who have lived with him for many years, humbled at his feet, and served him day and night. Greatly fortunate are all those with whom Sai has played, laughed, sat, talked, walked, eaten, slept, and even got angry with. He has shown such loving concern for me who has done nothing for him. Blessed is your state that you are so close to him. It seems that your store of earlier merits has caused this human form and brought this personage to Shirdi. You are infinitely blessed. By my immense good fortune I have attained to Shirdi. I feel that for Sri Sai's Darshan Yatra I would sacrifice everything. Sai, the pure and benevolent, is the great Vaishnav. He is truly the sprout of the tree of knowledge which shines like the sun in the sea of consciousness. So be it. I also must have some merit to have met this Mashidai, Dwarkamai, who made me fulfill my vow and gave me his darshan. He is my Lord Datta. He ordered me to take this vow. He made me get a seat in the steamer and brought me to Shirdi for the darshan. In this way, Sai showed his all-pervasive nature and how he resided in the hearts of all, bearing witness to all that happens everywhere. Seeing Sai's smiling visage, I felt extremely happy, and though being worldly, forgot all about the pains of the worldly existence. My blissful joy cannot be contained. Let everything happen as per destiny, and my mind certainly attain to that state. May my love be eternal at Sai's feet and may he dwell always in my heart and eyes. Sai Leelas are inconceivable and unfathomable. There is no limit to his obligations. O compassionate one, I feel like wearing out my body and mind in your service. So be it. Now a story which is a digression. Listen now to the words of Sai by being attentive for a while, as they are like the writing of Brahma, the wife of Sakharam Aurangabadkar, who lived in Sholapur city, was anxious about a child, and therefore came to Shirdi. Hearing about the inconceivable story of Sai Baba the holy saint, she came for his holy darshan, bringing along her stepson. Though she had been married for 27 years, she had not conceived. She had got exhausted making vows to gods and goddesses. She had lost all hope. So be it. Thus this married woman came for Baba's darshan with a purpose. She thus came to Shirdi when she had an idea. Baba is always surrounded by devotees. How will I find him alone? How will I be able to tell him what is in my heart? Therefore, she became intensely anxious. The masjid was open and so was the courtyard. There were always devotees hovering around Baba. How would she get a quiet moment to describe to him the earnest desire? She and her stepson, Vishwanath, stayed on for 2 months, rendering service to Baba. Listen to what this woman, with a desire, entreated Madhavarao, seeing that neither Vishwanath nor anyone else was near Baba. You, at least, find an opportunity to tell Baba my heart's longing, when Baba is in a good mood. That too when he is alone and not surrounded by his family of devotees. Tell him that at the earliest opportunity so that no one can hear. Madhavarao replied, the masjid is never without people. Someone or the other keeps continuously coming for darshan. This darbar of Sai is open. No one is forbidden to enter it. But I am suggesting something. Keep it in your mind carefully. To make efforts is my duty. He is the giver of success and the abode of auspiciousness. Finally, he will give you peace and relieve you of your worries. You should merely wait with a coconut and incense sticks in the courtyard, on the stone, when Baba sits down for his meal. Then after the meal is over, if I find him in a good mood, I will beckon you and you should come up, only then so be it. After some time, when the destined moment came, one day after Sai's meal was over, he got an unexpected opportunity. Sai having washed his hands, Madhavarao was drying them with a cloth. Observe what Sai did while he was in a joyful mood. In a burst of affection, Baba then pinched Madhavarao's cheek. Listen then to the loving conversation between God and his devotee at that opportune time. Though Madhavarao was full of humility, he feigned anger and jokingly said to Baba, is this behavior good? We do not want such a mischievous God who pinches our cheek with such force. Are we so awed by you? Is this the fruit of intimacy? Then Baba replied, have I ever touched you in all the 72 generations? Do you ever remember such an occasion? To which Madhavarao said, we want such a God who always gives us wonderful and novel sweets to eat when we are hungry. We do not want your respect nor a divine vehicle to attain the heavens. Give me only the boon of having faith at your feet. Then Baba started to speak. Yes, indeed, I have come for that, and that is why I started giving you food and got fondly attached to you by this time. They were near the banister. When Baba sat down on his own asan, Madhavarao signaled to the lady, who was sitting alert for her purpose. No sooner than the signal was made, she got up immediately and hurriedly climbed the steps of the masjid. She came in front of Baba and bowed with humility. She immediately offered the coconut at his feet and bowed at the lotus feet. Baba then struck the coconut with his own hand on the banister forcefully. He said, Shama, what does this say? The coconut is rattling a lot. Shama then took the opportunity. Hear what he said to Baba. The lady wishes that a child may be similarly rolling in her womb. Grant her that. May she be enjoined to your feet always. And let her problem be solved. Cast a merciful glance on her. Place the coconut in her oti. May she have sons and daughters with your blessings. Then Baba told him, can the coconut give any issue? How can there be such foolish belief? I think the people have lost their mind. Shama said, I know the marvel of your words. Your words are so valuable that she will have a series of children, spontaneously. But these days you are making a distinction. You are not giving her real blessings. You are only wrangling. Give her the coconut as prasad. Break the coconut, Baba said. Shama said, place it in her oti. The higgling went on for quite a while. When Baba ultimately yielded, he said, go, she will have a child. Shama said, when? Give a reply. Baba said, after 12 months the coconut was forcefully broken. Half of it was eaten by both, that is by Baba and Shama. The remaining half was given to the lady. Madhavarao said to the lady, you are a witness to my words. Lady, if from today before 12 months are complete you do not have a child, listen to what I will do. I will break such a coconut against this god's head and drive him out of the masjid. If I fail in this, I will not call myself Madhav. I will not allow such a god to live in the masjid. I say this certainly. In course of time, you will realize the truth of these words. Believe this surely and firmly. Being thus assured, the lady was very happy. Prostrating at Baba's feet, she returned to her home. Knowing that Shama was invariably obedient, Sai fulfilled the devotee's wish, pulled by the strings of love, and did not at all take offense at his words. Sai, the compassionate one, the cloud of mercy, the protector of those who have surrendered to him, to ensure that the words of the devotees came true, fondly fulfilled them. Shama was his favorite devotee, and the saint fulfilled the devotee's wish, which was asked for in ignorance and fondness, whether it was proper or not. This was his own vow. So be it. Before the 12 months were completed, Baba fulfilled his promise. Within 3 months of the conversation, the lady conceived. Fortunately, she became the mother of a son. She came to Shirdi with her husband and 5-month-old child for darshan. The husband too happily paid obeisance at Sai's feet, and offering 500 rupees expressed his unspoken gratitude. The monies were later utilized to build the walls of the stable for Baba's horse Shyamakaran, at the existing site where he used to be tethered. Therefore, think of this Sai, remember Sai and meditate upon Sai. This is Hemad's own refuge, who did not run helter-skelter anywhere. Why roam hither and thither when the Kasturi is in one's own navel? Always being humble at Sai's feet, Hemad enjoys incomparable bliss. The next chapter is more interesting than this, about how the devotees took Baba in procession from the masjid to the Chawadi, with great joy. Also the story about Baba's cooking vessel and the giving of prasad with humor. Listen to that in the next chapter, which will increase the enthusiasm. May there be well-being. This is the end of the 36th chapter of the, written by the devotee Hemad Pant, impelled by saints and virtuous people, called The All-Pervasiveness of Sai and the Fulfillment of His Blessings. This is offered to Sri Sadguru Sai Nath. May there be auspiciousness.